Welcome to the Real Talk Elgin podcast with Heather Keller from the Keller Group of eXp Realty. Heather is a leader in real estate sales and a short sale expert with over 15 years of experience. Heather is on a mission to personally help 100 families avoid foreclosure this year. The Real Talk Elgin podcast is your place to get up-to-date information on real estate trends and learn about the industry. Real Talk is recorded live at the WRMN studios in downtown Elgin. Call in to ask questions live at 847-931-1410, and she'll answer them for you on the air. And now, give a warm welcome to Real Talk Elgin podcast host, Heather Keller.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I am your host of Real Talk, Heather Keller, licensed real estate broker with eXp Realty. Today is season 3, episode 1. I'm super excited. Yay! Took a short break for the holidays and we are back. We are here every other Tuesday at downtown Elgin, WRMN. And if you want to listen to any previous shows, we have tons of them from season 1 and season 2. You can go to our website, realtalkelgin.com, or listen to wherever you listen to podcasts. We are also on iHeartRadio, or you can ask your Google and Alexa to play Real Talk Elgin. Today, we are going to be talking about short sales. I realize that, yes, I'm a short sale expert, but we've never had a show just based on short sales. So if you haven't already, I know I talked about this in season 2, you can like our Facebook page, Real Talk Elgin, but also Chicagoland's leading short sale expert. There's a lot of information there about short sales. And we all know that these moratoriums are ending and the forbearances are ending, and we want to be able to provide real-time accurate information of short sales and other foreclosure alternatives to families out there who might be struggling. So later on in the show, I will let you know how you can get a free copy of my book, The Complete Guide to Selling Your Home as a Short Sale. And we're going to talk about upcoming shows. So tonight is part 1 of a 5-part series. And tonight is going to be Intro to Short Sales. So you may have listened before or been live on Facebook with us. There is not a guest. It's just me and Leah talking about short sales. So I'm very excited, and we'll talk more about the other parts later on in the show. So I guess welcome, Leah. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I'm glad that I'm really happy that you decided to do this, because I can remember early on after we met and I just started doing the production for your show. It was you know what? I don't even know that I know what a short sale is. I'm probably like half the population that thinks it's something that gets done really quickly, only to learn that it's probably the opposite of what you would think it is. So I'm so glad you're doing the series.
Yeah, and we were going to just start season 3, episode 1 with just short sales. But I realized as I was planning at the end of last year that there's a lot to do with short sales. It's kind of complex, and so that's why we're doing the 5-part series. It's based off of the book that I wrote. So that way we'll cover, hopefully, all of the parts of a short sale, and if we need to do a recap, we can. But then it will help others understand what a short sale is.
Very excited about it.
So just a little bit about myself. I have been handling short sales now for 15 years. My husband and I started a short sale business 15 years ago.
Why? If you don't mind, I always wanted to ask that.
Yeah, so why? Chris, my husband, has always been ahead of the trends. And so we were in mortgages and the lending just kind of stopped. It stopped. Not kind of, it just stopped back in 2007. And we kept hearing the term short sales, short sales. And so we looked into that and we taught ourselves everything. Like, we didn't learn from anyone else. But we gravitated towards that because I've always wanted to make a difference and help people. And I believe that I can make a difference in the lives of families that are struggling. I want to be that go-to person for anyone who is struggling, knowing that, hey, there are good people out there, and don't just go on Google and research short sales.
It's very depressing if you do.
It is.
And everything I've ever even done, just as a little snippet prior to us working together here, I have looked at it and it says it's a long, complicated process, and it always ends saying, find somebody you would trust that knows everything that they need to know. So that's why, everything just goes back to that light back to you. So that's exciting.
Yes. And so majority of my business is short sales. I've done all types of transactions, but I gravitate towards them because while it is a very complex transaction, in the end, it's very rewarding. And those people are very thankful that they did not go to foreclosure. A lot of times they do get relocation assistance, and they can move on, and they don't have to have it like over their shoulders, like, am I going to foreclose? Am I going to get kicked out? So that's where I am 15 years later, and I have this show, and we do a lot of stuff on social media. I speak at bar associations to attorneys for short sales. So there's a lot of information out there. Don't Google short sales, but you can certainly Google my name, Heather Keller, and there'll be a lot of short sale stuff that comes up.
Great.
So we do have a mission each year. Our mission is to help, I'm sure you heard it on the intro, 100 families. So we haven't quite gotten to that goal yet. We got really close a couple of years ago. We just have that because, you know, there's a lot of families within Chicagoland. Like, I can look up the records to see how many people are, you know, struggling and have been served papers, which is called Liz Pendens. And there's a lot of families, thousands and thousands of them. So we do 100 families each year. So our first couple of them will be this week that we're helping, and we'll just continue to help them. And we stay in touch. And the great thing is a couple years, 2 or 3 down the road, they may want to come back and buy. Some people are like, nope, I'm just going to rent. But if they want to buy, then they can come back and work with us as well.
And I know we'll get into it, but I think a short sale actually helps them kind of keeping somebody looking over their shoulders for a shorter amount of time versus the foreclosure. And I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah. So what is a short sale?
Right.
I guess that's, since it's an introduction to short sales.
Okay.
Are you taking some notes?
I am, yeah. I got
A short sale just means a couple things. The bank, your lender. So let's just say you have Chase Bank and you have one mortgage. The mortgage, maybe they owe $500,000, but in reality, it's worth $400,000. So in a short sale situation, the bank, your lender, is going to accept less than what is owed. Okay. So it's less. So they do have to be underwater on their mortgage in order to proceed with a short sale.
Okay, so that means underwater means they haven't paid it in so many times. How does that work?
Well, sometimes someone will contact me and they aren't quite behind yet, but they're trying to be proactive in the situation. So in order to start a short sale, you do have to be behind on your mortgage, though.
Okay.
So let's say someone has made January 1st payment, but cannot make February 1st, and they're contacting me. We could still start it because you have to list the house, and then you got to prepare a packet once you get an offer. So by the time that happens, it'll be at least the 30-day mark.
Got it. Because banks aren't forgiving, guys. They don't give you, I mean, they give you maybe about a 10-day leeway or 15-day leeway, but otherwise they set that date and they want it.
Will be ringing. You'll be getting mail, which we've had attorneys on the show before. Open up the mail, read it. It is a very daunting situation, but it's better to come up with a plan. And I've stressed this in many shows before, earlier on versus later on in the process.
So a short sale is because you owe more than what the value of the home is.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's not, so back when, just to give an example, back when Chris and I started these short sales in 07, 08, we were doing the short sales for like 50% of what the homeowner owed. So they owed $300,000. We were selling them for like $150,000. I mean, it was crazy back then.
Right.
It's not so much now. And a lot of times, the seller may even be able to pay a first mortgage off, but then we would have to short the second mortgage.
Okay.
So each situation is very unique and tricky. That's why it's important to, talk to a professional about it.
So then when it came time with the pandemic hit, and obviously so many people had delays, and those are the moratoriums that you're talking about, that they were able to get by without having to make a mortgage payment. That's why all of this kind of just went idle. Is that right?
Yeah, so it depends on what your lender did. It's a very gray area, in my opinion, on what these forbearances did. Sometimes they were putting the amount that they didn't pay on the back end of the loan, which then it just adds more of the amount that you owe.
Oh, right.
So people forget to take that into consideration. The banks aren't just waiving that money. They can't do that, otherwise they would be out of business.
They'll get their money somehow.
Yeah, so they'll put it on the back end, or sometimes, they want it all up front. So when the forbearances first started, we didn't think it would drag out this long. And so, maybe some of them only last for 3 or 4 months, and when it was up, they would have to take all of that money. So let's just say it was $2,000 a month, and they didn't pay for 4 months, $8,000. I can count.
Yep.
$8,000 they would have to bring current in order to bring everything current.
Yeah, that's odd to me that they couldn't find a uniform way for each financial institute to handle it. I suppose if they had that, then people wouldn't be competing for your business, and it just seemed like they didn't have one way that it could go across the board.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess, or I mean, not quite yet, but I think it's going to get there because, I still have clients now that are getting calls from their banks saying, oh, we can help you, but those people don't realize that the short sale department doesn't talk to the customer service department. So they don't know that we're doing a short sale. They're just required to call all these people to say, hey, we can do something for you. But in reality, they're already doing a short sale.
Right.
So it's very confusing because if they did like a uniform where it was the same for every bank, it would make things a lot easier. But
Right.
I just don't think that the government or anyone for that matter can put that together because it's just a mess.
No, and again, each bank has got a little bit of a perk one way or another. Otherwise, what would be their competition in getting everybody to bring your service there? To bring your money there. You want to get your mortgage from them, they're going to compete to get your mortgage, right?
Right.
So I imagine each one's got their own little fine print that make it. So I get that, but it seems like the whole thing, even with the pandemic, in this arena has been a real cluster. So
it very much
challenging for you.
It is challenging, and some banks are easier to work with than others.
Do you ever see one when somebody does it and you find out who the financial institute and you're like, oh man.
Yeah. So like someone, I'm like, that's like one of the first questions I ask is who the bank is, and they'll say SPS, and I'm like in the background doing a dance because I love working with SPS, Select Portfolio Servicing. There's several others that I like to work with. FHA mortgages, if you have an FHA mortgage, that is very intense and more difficult to complete than...
It's even intense getting that mortgage. Yeah, so that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so, but like I said, a short sale is when you're behind on your mortgage and you owe more on the house than what it's worth.
Got it.
So you don't have to participate in a short sale right away. Let's say maybe you don't want to keep the house, then yes, I would proceed with a short sale because it is going to be better than a foreclosure, which we'll talk about next. But if you are trying to keep the house, then I do suggest you calling your bank to start a loan modification process. I would do that on your own. I wouldn't hire a company because there's so many scams going out.
What's a loan modification process?
So a loan modification is where they review you to see if they can, sometimes they put the money that you owe on the back end, and then they'll reduce the payment so you can stay in the house.
They try to work it out.
They try to work it out. And usually if they do say yes to a loan modification, then you're doing like a 3-month trial period. And if you can make those 3 months, then they'll turn it into a permanent modification.
Yeah.
So I would start there. You can do this on your own through the banks. You just have to continue to call them, I would say twice a week, to make sure that they have everything. It's an annoying process for you to complete this if you're not used to it, but it's better than going to a loan modification company, which there are probably some good ones out there, but I don't think that you should have to pay to do this. I mean, you're struggling as it is. Try to do it on your own.
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a foreclosure, a lot of people use like foreclosure and short sale kind of, intertwined, but short sale, I always say that people are in pre-foreclosure. Okay. So they have either just stopped making their payments, or if they've gone through like 3 or 4 months, and then they'll get served papers, and that is then filed as lis pendens, meaning suit pending. And so once it goes through the foreclosure process in the state of Illinois, it will then become a foreclosure if they don't do anything.
Okay.
So let's just say I don't care. I don't want to do a short sale. I don't care about anything.
Take my house. I don't care.
I'm just going to wait it out, sit there. And so then it will go through the process, which it is lengthy in the state of Illinois. Then they'll set an auction date, which we'll talk about next. And then if you do nothing, Leah, then the bank is going to foreclose on the property. Okay. Then it becomes an REO, which is real estate owned. Okay. So once it becomes real estate owned and the sale has been confirmed in the courts of Illinois, then it becomes a foreclosure. That is a full-blown foreclosure. So people will say, oh, I'm in foreclosure. I don't own the house anymore. That's not true. during the pre-foreclosure process in the state of Illinois, even though you're behind on your payments, you still own that house. You're on the title. So you have to be involved with the process.
Got it.
If you're going to sell as a short sale.
Okay.
But yes, foreclosure is when you don't do anything. The bank sells it at auction, whether it gets sold back to the bank, which is REO, or if it gets sold to a third party, then it's a foreclosure.
So obviously, I understand people have financial droughts, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, and I do know there's probably individuals that are like, you know what, they think the world is against them. Fine, take it. I can see how people would do that, but because again of the pandemic, that kind of lengthened out the time before they had any action taken against them, or did that not stall during the pandemic, the foreclosure process?
The pandemic just really has messed with everything.
So let's act like this is not pandemic, because we're going to hope that will be gone pretty soon.
I hope so, but just to give you a quick example, I have been talking before the pandemic hit, which has now been almost 2 years. Probably a year prior to that, I was talking to this guy who had this rental property in Plainfield area. So I do short sales all over Chicagoland. And he was like, I'm not ready. I'm trying to work things out with my bank. So I just keep in touch with those people, because if something doesn't work out with your bank, then I want to be the first one that they call to ask for help. So then the pandemic hit, and he was like, you know, they're not going to do anything. And I knew that. So when the pandemic hit, they put the moratoriums in place. He got the forbearance. And then his forbearance ended at the end of last year.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, you got to do something. I'm keeping an eye on your case. They're probably going to set another auction. And he was like, no, I'm working with the bank. And, you know, I checked my system, because we check every week or so. And there was an auction date set on the house.
So either he was BSing or the bank wasn't in his best interest. So what happened there?
He communicates with the bank. That's where I want people to know is the banks really, I don't think they care much about you.
Right.
Even though they're trying to work with you. I don't think their foreclosure attorneys with the banks, along with the banks, communicate very well.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of people that call me and say, I didn't even know that I had an auction date on my house, but the bank, you know, is communicating with me. It's crazy.
So they think because they're having conversation, things are back to an idle mode.
Yeah.
Right.
Just that is not true.
Yeah, right.
You know, just because you're doing a loan modification or a short sale, does it stall it out a little bit? I think it does, but they're not going to completely stop the foreclosure process.
That's a tough false sense of security.
Because if they did, then everyone would be calling Heather to say, hey, let me do a short sale, and then nothing would come of it.
Right.
So it's a short sale stalls, meaning it buys you more time. I always tell people, at least you're going to move out on your time, our time, Heather Keller's team's time, versus the bank.
Saying, the board, you're locked out.
Yeah, we don't want the bank to be, you know, telling you when you have to move. Now, I'm nicey with the banks because I know how to get what I want from them, but it's So if you're in that situation right now where maybe you were behind before the pandemic, remember Adil was on here talking about the different stages. Like, you really should call us and get some more information.
I think personally, if anybody has had any one of those stages prior to the pandemic, because of everything switching and changing on a dime like that, I would think everybody should be contacting
and
you
auction
or
dates are being set.
Right. And that you made a good point, that false sense of security. When you think, we always say, if you are behind on a bill, just contact them, talk to them. And so people do believe then, as long as I've got a communication going, I'm in the clear.
Yeah.
And like I said, now when you go on there and you see that there's a foreclosure date set, that's a tough nut to crack, man.
Now, maybe if you're more at the beginning of the process and you're communicating, fine. But when you're at the end, especially if you were behind before the pandemic hit and now here we are, then they're going to set those dates for sure.
Is this date considered behind? Like, is that retrievable anymore now that they've set that date for the foreclosure for this person?
What do you mean exactly?
So were they in the, let's say you say the levels, if they're at this point, this point, this point, first of all, it might just be, okay, you can't pay your mortgage, then you're trying to figure out, when you get to the point where they have a date set for your foreclosure, is there any retrievable way to get back out of that? I mean, is there a way that
it's very difficult.
Yeah, because I would say there's a lot of time that's been invested.
Yeah, especially now. I mean, there's I think one deal we're working on right now, they haven't made a payment in 5 years because of of the pandemic. Now, that's not a typical situation.
Right.
So anyone who's listening, if they think they can just not make a payment for
My
5
eyes
years,
did the cartoon wall.
yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah.
But so an auction date, just so we're not confused, we have the short sale,
Right.
and then we have the foreclosure. Auction date happens right before the foreclosure. So once the seller has gone through the entire foreclosure process, then the courts will set an auction date on their house. So let's just say it gets set on February 22nd.
Okay.
Okay. And you do nothing. That is when the sheriff is going to auction off your house.
Got it.
So if you have an auction date on your house, there's still some possibilities of what you can do, but they're very limited if you do it then versus at the very beginning.
I like the idea. First of all, this whole it's just a crud situation anyway, because again, the pandemic had to come into play, and a lot of people maybe had lost their jobs and found themselves in a boat that they didn't think they'd ever see. But I do like the fact that the options are out there, and that we have people, at least that I've even got to meet through your show, that can help people and have it for their best interest.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I will always look at a case. I mean, my heart, I just want to help everyone. Unfortunately, if you call me the day before you have an auction, well, then that's, I can't help you. If you do have an auction, it's ideal that we have probably at least 6 weeks to get the house listed and get an offer. Some banks will postpone the auction without an offer. It just really depends on your bank and, the situation.
I like the fact that you have people have a little bit more decision making then. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, they can stay in their house and, it's on their terms.
Yes, I always stress hey, we want it to be on your terms versus the bank's terms. And the short sale is going to be a better option than a foreclosure, because you certainly don't want a foreclosure on your credit report. Especially,
Is that like a 7-year, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very long time, and we'll talk more after the break about the benefits and what makes a good candidate for a short sale. But it is going to be much better than going to foreclosure. So most attorneys would stress that a short sale is going to be better.
So these two aren't a case of either or. It's a matter of one being able to precede the negative one. Try your short sale before you go into that foreclosure disaster.
Yeah, and so it's a rare situation for us to have a house that does go to foreclosure. I mean, we'll try to help everyone we can.
Right.
But like I said, if they do call us too late in the process, then I have to say no, which I hate saying no. But there are different tactics to get that date postponed. But again, you're going to have to call a little bit earlier on.
Let's throw that phone number out there real quickly, just in case somebody is listening in our...
So 224-407-2220. Again, that's 224-407-2220. You can call that one or also text. And you can also email info@tkghomes.net. We try to get back to you pretty quickly because we know that your situation is, time is of the essence. So please give us a call or email us. We'll take a look at your case and come up with a game plan for you. We will be back shortly for the second half of the show.
Welcome back to Real Talk Elgin with real estate expert Heather Keller. Call 847-931-1410 and Heather will be happy to answer your questions about real estate. And now back to Studio 14 in downtown Elgin for more Real Talk Elgin with Heather Keller.
Welcome back. Before we talk more about short sales, I want to make sure that anyone who wants a copy of my book, The Complete Guide to Selling Your Home as a Short Sale, you can get a free copy. We'd be happy to drop one off, mail one to you, but go to our website, realtalkelgin.com. At the top right corner, you can click on Short Sale Book. It will take you to my website, and you can fill out the form, and we will get you a free copy. The 5-part series that I am working on, and the first part is tonight, it goes through the whole entire book. So it is a great resource for homeowners that are struggling. So let's talk a little bit more about the shows coming up. So we have this 5-part series. Tonight is part 1, intro to short sales. So hopefully everyone's getting a lot of introduction to short sales. On February 8th, we are going to come back and we are going to do part 2. And it's titled, Why It Is Important to Hire a Short Sale Expert and the Process of Listing Your Home as a Short Sale. March 8th, we'll return for part 3, which is the short sale offer and what's next. April 5th, we'll do part 4, negotiations and the short sale approval letter.
Okay.
And then May 3rd, we'll do part 5, closing a short sale. So if we have to do a recap after those, we certainly can, because it may be a little bit overwhelming. So we could do that in the second half of 2022. In between all of those shows, we're going to have guests back. So we're going to talk bankruptcy. We're going to talk divorce, delinquent property taxes, which we haven't had before, alternatives to foreclosure, mortgage rates, and becoming an agent with eXp Realty. So we have a lot put into the first half of 2022. But I'm very excited. Again, if you haven't liked our Facebook page, Real Talk Elgin, as well as Chicagoland's leading short sale expert, you can listen to all of our past shows. We've done a lot on other short sale, bankruptcy and foreclosure defense. And so all of our shows are on our website. You can also listen to it on iHeartRadio. And of course, ask your Google and Alexa, which I have said before. All right, so let's talk more about short sales. So we have a lot of questions that get asked, like when I'm sitting down with people. So let's start with that.
Okay.
Might as well.
Yep.
And because it's probably going to make you think, okay, what are these questions? And that's why I love having this conversation with you, because you said when I first started, you didn't know what a short sale was.
No, I find this very educational. And if anything that I can share with this, it's going to get somebody else the help that they deserve and, really need.
Yeah.
I love it. More power to it.
So one of the questions that I always get when I sit down with a family is, how long does a short sale take?
Right. I asked her during the break, because I said, what's the longest it took for you?
So the longest... I had one that took 3 years.
Go.
It just, honestly, this closed several years ago, so I can't even really remember. I don't think anything was even really crazy with that one. And then I had another one that took 2 years, and that one, the seller was in prison, and so we had to release his restitution lien on title, and it was just, the title of the house was a mess.
So it's an extraordinary circumstance.
Yeah.
Okay.
So an extraordinary circumstance would be could take that long, but I would say typically 3 to 6 months. It really just depends. Short sale does not mean short time frame.
I know. I thought that. I'm not going to lie. That's what I thought when we first started doing the show and found this. Yeah.
A lot of people think that short sale means short time frame.
And everybody would choose it then.
Well, no. I mean, a lot of people want, come to me because they're like, look, we don't want to get kicked out. We want more time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, great, because short sales, they take a while, especially if you have a certain type of mortgage like FHA. Fannie Mae is a wonderful investor to deal with. They have a system online, HomePath for shortsales.com. I was just on it today. I think that's what it is.
Okay.
It's the Fannie Mae one, so we do everything directly with Fannie Mae. I would say their process is more around 2 months. So let's just give you a typical time frame, okay,
Please.
Leah? So we meet today. Usually we meet, and then a day later the house goes on the market. So right now we're still getting offers fairly quickly. So let's just say we get an offer within the first 2 weeks, okay? So then that puts us at the end of January, okay? And then it's going to probably take us another 2 weeks to pull the title, have the statement prepared, which is all the numbers so the bank can see, what they're going to get,
right?
Okay? And then we have to collect paperwork from you depending on, what type of mortgage you have.
Right.
Which we'll talk about that in a later part of the series.
Uh-huh.
And then we have to submit the packet, okay? So then it takes a couple days for them to get it uploaded into their system. And we always call the banks on Tuesday and Fridays to get updates.
Okay.
So let's just say once we get the offer, the packet and everything gets sent to the bank within 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Then it's probably going to take 2 to 3 months to complete everything with them. it has to go through a process. And what people don't realize is we're not the only ones trying to get the short sale done. So that's just a general time frame. Obviously, it's best to sit down with myself to get a better idea. It really depends on if you have one mortgage, two mortgages. Sometimes people have IRS tax liens. So all of that depends on the length of the short sale.
I have a couple questions based on what you just said. So the whole time these people are still in their home.
Correct. And that is another question that we have. So the question is, can I stay in my home during the entire short sale process? And the answer is yes.
Okay.
So I prefer not to have a vacant property, especially right now in Chicagoland, because it is cold. And if you do decide to move out of the house, we really need to communicate that for a couple reasons. One, you need to keep the utilities on because we don't want any frozen pipes.
And damage. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I prefer you to stay in the house until I kind of give you the okay. And my team works on that through the whole process. So once I know that the short sale is going to be approved, then I will have Sean, which he's been on the show before, help them find a rental. Also, I don't like you to move out before the bank has done their evaluation, because a lot of times that's how relocation assistance is determined. They want to make sure that you're still living there in order to get the relocation assistance.
Okay.
And that's typically $3,000.
Got it. So when I come to you to sit down on that, you automatically post it up for sale immediately, like you said, because you got an offer, so they had to get an offer from somewhere because you're posting that house up for sale?
Yeah, so we have to go for all the listing paperwork, which with a short sale there's a little bit more. So we sign everything today, but it's dated to go up for tomorrow. We list it tomorrow, and then we will have to do showing. So you do have to show your house. I get that question a lot too.
Okay.
You will have to show the house, but we can do it during the times that work best for you.
Okay.
And the other times I'll just black out. So we do like to make sure that the showings are confirmed, because if not, the banks sometimes like to see that data. Are they confirming showings? Are they cooperating with you? So that's good too. But yes, the house does go up right away. In some certain circumstances, maybe we don't put it up for 2 weeks. It just depends.
Okay.
Like I said, every situation is different, but typically we'll meet and put it up like the next day.
Okay.
And then that starts the process. So they will sign an authorization allowing me to speak on their behalf, and that gets sent to the bank so we can update them as to what is going on.
And then you can report or get the reports from the bank to find out what the status is, so you can tell that to your client.
Yeah, so we always ask the bank when we call, hey, is there a scheduled auction date? Is there a scheduled auction date? I mean, we sound like a broken record. We ask them all the time. Plus, we do have access to an online system that we pay for, and so we can log on to there and see if there's an auction date there.
A date set. Okay, got it.
So, but our system doesn't update until, like, if you've been served papers and a Liz Pendens has been filed, then our system usually updates about 3 weeks later.
Okay.
So, but we do ask the bank because it is in their system if there's an auction date. Yeah.
Okay. And so prior to the short sale, they just found out they're in a predicament that they're not going to be able to keep their house. They're worried they're not going to be able to keep their house. They want to find the least painful way to try and get through it. Is how I look at it. And then they'll start coming to you. They'll reach out to a professional. Again, I have to say that every piece of document, after we started working together, Heather had her show here, and I started looking it up. Every document that I looked at, and mind you, these are all documents that have ads saying, you know how when you look up something on the internet, it's an ad. These are all people who are saying, okay, come to me, right? So you said there's so many scams and stuff out there, but no matter who it is that you go to, every document, it ended its page saying, go to a reliable short sale professional. Yeah. Everyone did that. Even if they didn't say come to me, but they said your best scenario is going to be if you use a short sale professional in this area.
Yeah, and part 2 is about, why it is important to hire a short sale specialist. It's just a good business decision for you in the future, because if you don't, you may end up going to foreclosure. You want to find someone whose why is to help you avoid the foreclosure and truly cares about getting you to the next chapter of your life. Not someone who is a family friend or they cannot be related to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Or someone who just wants to take on another listing. Okay. That's not a good idea for you.
Do they have people and try and poach ones like that? I mean, are there bad? I know every every profession has good and bad and evil, but I do know there are a good handful of people that are trying to help out in every kind of situation or scenario, situation. So are there people that are just trying to, like you said before, the banks don't always do what's in the best interest of the client?
Yeah. So there's some certain questions to ask
Okay.
a listing agent, to determine if they are a short sale expert.
Are they
So-
obvious? Like, how long have you been doing it, or how do
Yeah,
you
stuff
find that
like
out?
that, or like how many short sales have you done? Can you show me? Like, it's so important for you to not just pick someone, and Google. Like, you can find out if you Google my name, you're gonna see all this short sale information.
Got it.
Real Talk, my Facebook pages, my deals on Zillow, all my Zillow reviews. So you're gonna see, okay, I think that she's, a short sale expert.
Got some street cred behind it.
Yeah,
Right.
right. So another frequently asked question I get all the time is, like, does a short sale cost anything? And so, that's a big thing because these families are struggling and, they're trying to make ends meet, can't make their mortgage payment. And the
Right.
answer to that is no, it should not cost you anything. If you have a homeowners association, we highly suggest you to stay current on that because dealing with an HOA is probably more painful than your mortgage company. So we suggest you stay current with that.
Yeah, they're not forgiving.
They're not very forgiving. It's a real pain to deal with them. But a short sale is not going to cost you anything. So then people say, well, how do you get paid? So I get paid from your bank. So all of that gets paid on the statement. There are no fees for me. There's no listing fees. If you decide, maybe you win the lottery and you want to keep the house and pay off the mortgage, there's no fees to cancel the listing.
Okay.
No listing fees, no cancellation fees. I can't ask you for money up front. It is illegal. So if someone you're interviewing is
Red
trying to get
flag.
your listing as a short sale and they're asking you for money, run. I don't think that happens as much now as it did, 15 years ago when I started. But this should not cost you anything, even like an attorney fee. Like, I have a handful of attorneys. I can't require them to use my attorneys, but it's just easier for them if they're willing. Because,
Well, you're on the same page then.
Yeah, we're all on the same team.
That's why it's a team.
Yeah, they know
Exactly.
how I work. They, vice versa. But their attorney fee gets paid by the bank. So there should not be any cost. Now, you may have to pay like a water bill at the end, but you're still living in the house, so you have to stay current
You're using
with
the
your
water.
utilities.
Yeah. So you had mentioned two things. So if somebody is going to apply for this, you had mentioned before that sometimes if you work through the bank, they might charge you for it, and you really don't think you should get charged for.
No, so if you want to try to keep the house and do a loan modification, I highly suggest you personally, Leah, you call your bank
Right.
and ask for the loan modification paperwork and do it yourself. The bank's not going to charge you to do a loan modification.
Got
But
it.
there are loan modification companies out there
Got
that
it.
will charge you to do what you can do yourself. And a lot of them can be scam artists, so you have to be very, very careful.
Well, that again lies in a dark category because I might not, you use like, what'd you say, Liz Pendens?
Yeah,
which
that
is served.
means suit pending.
Okay, so you use words like that, and there's some times where I'll read a document, and because even when looking up the short sales, the lender is this person, and it uses all this terminology that I find I have to do a flow chart just to figure out who is who. So I would be honestly a little hesitant to try and do that modification on my own. What if I put something down the wrong way? What if I didn't fill out a form the right way and it ends up I would
So
have
they
some professional even look at that.
Yeah, so the forms, they're pretty easy. They're not
Okay.
that difficult. But that's where follow-up is key. So if you're trying to do a loan mod and you're submitting it to your bank, you need to call them, a
Okay.
couple times a week.
Got it. So I can't keep my house, and I want to do a foreclosure. I want to do a short sale. I want to avoid foreclosure.
Yeah, then
Okay.
you can, the modification paperwork and the short sale paperwork are actually the same thing. It just depends on what box you mark. You want to sell the
Again,
house or
point
keep
made.
the house. Yeah.
Is that actually a box on there that says sell the house or keep the house?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, got
and
it.
there's one other one, but I never use it. I don't remember other maybe, which I'm not even sure what that is.
What other would be?
Yeah, something like that. But we do, I mean, you have to personally fill out the paperwork, but we do review everything before we submit it to the bank. So if you really don't want to keep the house, maybe you have a plan B on where you're going to go, but you just want to buy more time and avoid the foreclosure and possibly get some relocation assistance, then the short sale is going to be the best option for you.
Is there, I didn't know there was relocation assistance. Somebody will help you try, because obviously
So-
if you do a short sale, you are not able to get another mortgage probably for a year or two, I would assume, afterwards.
It's probably going to be closer to 3 years, but
3? Okay.
relocation assistance you get when it closes.
Okay.
Okay. So they want to make sure you've moved out of the house and you've cooperated. You get that money at the closing when I get paid.
Got it. And really, technically, it's in the best interest of the bank to make sure this does go all through, because then they're not taking a whole hit altogether. It's better to have something than nothing.
Right. It is better to have something rather than nothing. You may not be thinking to the future because it's like a very tricky situation right now, but you're going to be thankful that you did do the short sale in the future, because who knows, maybe you need to go buy another car or a house down the road, and you don't want to have to mark that you've been through a foreclosure. Also, let's talk about like what makes a good candidate for a short sale. So I made a list of all of them because there's so many.
Okay.
So we talked about this. They must be behind on their mortgage. So I don't know how many people call me and say, "Hey, I'm current. I just owe more on the house than what it's worth." That is not going to work. The bank
Okay.
is not going to do a short sale unless you're behind on your mortgage. Another important factor is you must demonstrate a financial hardship. So if you're coming to me and you have money in the bank account, a little bit is not going to matter, but I have
You've got
one-
assets.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
it's, if it's an investment property, like I said, every situation's different, but you must demonstrate a financial hardship. Maybe someone passed away, maybe you're getting a divorce, loss of job. So that's important. It does not matter if you have one mortgage, two mortgages, and I've done short sales with 3 mortgages. So don't be afraid to reach out if you have 1, 2, or 3 mortgages, or IRS tax liens. So a lot of people have those liens on their house and they're like, well, I'm not going to even be able to do a short sale. So, whatever, I'm just going to sit here and then let it foreclose. That is not true. So we do pull title at the beginning of the process to see what exactly is on there. I mean, I do ask the sellers, but we want to make sure we know what we're dealing with. So if there's an IRS tax lien, that is totally fine. We will get that released from the title of the property once the short sale is approved.
Okay.
It won't be released from you personally. Obviously, you're still responsible for that, but it will release it from the title so we could at least sell the house.
Sell the house. Got it.
Same thing with state of Illinois. However, they're a little bit more difficult. If you can stay current with them, I would suggest that, because they don't just release it. They want something to release for it. Like I said, Illinois is kind of a pain. If you're behind on your property taxes, that is okay. So let's just say maybe you didn't escrow your mortgage or your property taxes into your mortgage and you haven't paid. That is fine. So we're working on a deal right now, and there's about $20,000 of back owed taxes. The bank is just going to pay that at closing, but it's my responsibility, my team's responsibility, to make sure that we put that on the statement, which has all of the numbers.
Right.
So that way the bank knows that they have to pay that.
So I'm curious about that. So how then does the bank hopes to recoup that money then on the sale of the property after this is all complete?
Well, so if they're going to foreclose on the property, then they're going to have to bring those taxes current anyways.
Anyway, got it.
So they're
True.
okay with paying that in a short sale situation.
Got it.
Now, if your
Good to know.
taxes are not escrowed and you are behind, sometimes the bank will still go in and pay them. So every situation is different. We do look at the tax records, prior to meeting with the seller, just to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row.
Got it.
If there's nothing else that can be done, maybe you've tried foreclosure defense and you're at the end of that process, so you can then do a short sale. Maybe you filed a Chapter 7 and you don't want to keep the property, then it gets a little bit tricky, so we need to make sure that we're timing the short sale usually after they've met
the
with
filing?
Yeah, like right after they've had their meeting with the creditors. But if you filed a Chapter 7 and don't want to keep the property, but maybe you want more time. And then also Chapter 13 clients. So a lot of times you can file a Chapter 13 and you can try to keep the house, but they're they realize down the road that it's a lot of money to continue to keep up with the payments. So if you're in a Chapter 13 and you realize that you can no longer make those mortgage payments, reach out to me before you let the case get dismissed, because depending on where you're in the foreclosure process, they'll just pick it back right up.
Okay.
Right up where they left off. So a Chapter 13 client. And then also someone who's 100% cooperative, just really wants to find someone that can help them. I would be that go-to person. But we need to make sure that you're on board and that you're going to cooperate, because it is a long process.
Got it. Okay, so you guys can see I'm taking notes.
Are you taking notes?
Look at that page here. Seriously, I mean, I'm fascinated when there's a subject that I don't know something about, and especially having a chance to meet a lot of the members of your team during your shows.
Yeah.
I like the fact that if I hear somebody's having one of these difficulties or finds himself in this situation, that, you know, you can automatically recommend they go somewhere.
Yeah.
So, and I guarantee every one of us knows, especially with the pandemic, somebody that's, really been struggling, person who, was making a ton of money and had all the great toys and everything, and all of a sudden lost his high-paying job and had to one by one just get rid of those toys, and now the house is the last thing. I
mean, I've done short sales that were $50,000, and my highest one was $1.5 million. It was the old governor's house in Evanston. So it really doesn't matter. It's always a range. But yeah, if you know someone, maybe they don't want to contact me to get a free copy of the book, you certainly can.
Right.
I'm going to give my phone number again, 224-407-2220. Again, that's 224-407-2220. You can call that number and also text it. If at all possible, you can include your name and the address, because I can look that up pretty quickly and give you a call back. And, I can come up with a game plan, pretty quick after talking to them and asking them a few questions depending on what they want to do. But I just want to make sure that people understand the benefits of a short sale versus the foreclosure. So you will avoid the foreclosure on your credit report, which is very good. You don't want to have that foreclosure. If you're wanting to buy again in the future, you're going to have to wait, and my team will help them find a rental. Okay. But you're going to have to rent. There's no way you can buy unless someone else is going to buy for you.
Got it.
So you're going to avoid the foreclosure on your credit report. And we said this before, you can move out on our time versus the bank's time, which is important. We don't want the bank, the sheriff, coming knocking on the door and asking, kicking you out.
Right.
And people have said before, do they actually take your stuff and put it to the curb? They can, yeah. So we don't want that to happen.
So all of this is based on, and now at some point during our series here, will we go back and see of the status that everybody was at before the pandemic started and how that affects it? Because if somebody had the episode or the issue started prior to that, now that this was done in December, I think the moratoriums were complete, right?
Yeah.
So does that just pick up right from where they left off?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why that guy had an auction date and he didn't really know. And, I don't know really the laws on how they have to inform the sellers of an auction date, but I know it comes up very quickly, because this is not the first time this has happened to someone I've been talking to for, a while. So it's better to just come up with a plan now. Maybe you're not even ready right now. That's fine. I'm not going anywhere, but you still have to come up with some sort of plan.
Got it. All right. Groovy.
So, the other benefit to a short sale is the possible relocation assistance. You will get more time in your property, so I like to have the sellers stay in there through the whole process. People keep asking me, when do I have to move? Should I start looking? I will hold their hand through the process. So when it does come to that time, Sean will come in and, get it all taken care of. So
is there pieces of information that they should have prepared prior to contacting you? I mean, you have the checklist of things that they should know before coming to you that you can answer.
I mean, really all I want to know on our first phone conversation is your name, your address, and if you have one or two mortgages and who they're with.
Easy to do.
Everything else can come at a later date. So I hope that was a great intro to short sales. Please go back and watch this episode as it comes available on our website, realtalkelgin.com. We will be back in 2 weeks with special guest Jill Beta Daniels. She is a real estate attorney, and we're going to be discussing real estate in 2022. Thanks, everyone, and see you in 2 weeks.